TIFU by thinking a work conference would be a safe space and accidentally reopening old wounds with a coworker. I messed up. I did not think things through, and now I am dealing with the fallout. It all started a few weeks ago. My company scheduled a mandatory team building conference at a fancy resort a few hours away. I was not thrilled, but attendance was required, so I packed my bags and prepared for a weekend of forced fun. I arrived at the resort on Friday afternoon. The place was huge. It had multiple pools, golf courses, and restaurants. My company covered the cost of the room, which was a relief. I checked in and found my assigned room. It was nice, but I would have preferred to stay home. I unpacked my things and checked the schedule for the weekend. It looked like I had a few hours to kill before the first event, so I decided to explore the resort grounds. I walked around for a while and then grabbed a drink at the bar. That evening, the conference officially kicked off with a welcome dinner. I sat at a table with some of my coworkers. I made small talk and ate the food. The dinner was followed by an opening presentation from the company's chief executive officer. He talked about the company's goals for the next year. I listened politely, but I was eager to go back to my room. I went to bed early so I would be rested for the next day's activities. The conference itself was what you would expect. There were motivational speakers, awkward icebreakers, and presentations about increasing productivity. I mostly zoned out and tried to avoid eye contact with my boss. However, one aspect of the conference stood out: small group sessions designed to foster collaboration and communication. I was assigned to a group with 5 other coworkers, including a man who I will call John. John and I had worked together for a few years. We were friendly, but not close. We usually just exchanged polite greetings in the office and collaborated on projects when necessary. I did not know much about his personal life, and he did not know much about mine. The company decided to implement a new team-building initiative. The goal was to improve communication and collaboration across departments. They hired an outside consultant to lead a series of workshops. Everyone grumbled about it. We all thought it was a waste of time. I heard that the upper management thought morale was low, so they wanted to boost morale. I did not have a choice but to participate. My manager told me it was mandatory. I was not thrilled about spending extra hours in meetings. I hoped it would not be too awkward. The first workshop involved small group activities. We had to work with people from different departments. I ended up in a group with people I barely knew. It felt forced and unnatural at first. Everyone seemed uncomfortable. We made small talk about the weather and work deadlines. The facilitator tried to break the ice with some introductory games. I found them to be silly and ineffective. I still did not know anything real about these people. I knew I had to play along anyway. During our first small group session, the facilitator asked us to share a personal challenge we had overcome. I hesitated. I am not usually one to share intimate details about my life with coworkers, but the facilitator emphasized the importance of vulnerability in building trust. I decided to share something relatively safe, a difficult family situation I had navigated a few years prior. I explained how my parents had gone through a messy divorce and how it had impacted me emotionally. I talked about the challenges of balancing my work with my family responsibilities. I tried to keep it brief and avoid getting too emotional, but I could feel myself getting choked up as I spoke. It was difficult to talk about those things. I had avoided the subject for a long time. Bringing it up made me feel vulnerable. I worried about how others would perceive me. I also didn't want to burden them with my personal problems. I knew I needed to open up eventually. I thought this was a safe space to do it. I hoped they would understand. I needed to feel heard. I wanted them to know me better. I decided to share those details of my past. I wasn't sure what kind of reaction to expect. I was relieved that they seemed sympathetic. I appreciated John's comment. It made me feel less alone. Knowing someone else understood helped a lot. I felt a connection with him in that moment. It also made me curious to hear more about his experience. I was glad I had been honest. I think it brought us all closer together. I waited to see who would speak next. When I finished, John was the first to respond. He thanked me for sharing and said he could relate to what I had gone through. He then revealed that his parents had also divorced when he was younger. He said it was a painful experience that he had never fully processed. As he spoke, I could see the emotion in his eyes. He talked about feeling abandoned and confused as a child. He talked about the difficulty of navigating the shifting dynamics between his parents. He shared details about his experiences that he had never told anyone at work before. He went on to explain some incidents that had happened when he was a teenager. His parents fought frequently, and he often found himself in the middle. He felt like he had to be the responsible one, even though he was still just a kid. He also talked about the pressure he felt to succeed in school. His parents had high expectations, and he did not want to disappoint them. He wanted to make them proud, but he also felt like he was never good enough. Hearing all of this made me think about my own upbringing. I had also experienced some similar things. My parents divorced when I was young, and that was difficult. I remember feeling like I had to choose sides. I also remember the financial struggles we went through after my father left. It was not easy, but we got through it. I think that is why I could relate to what he was saying. I understood the pain he was describing. I listened intently, offering words of support and understanding. I felt a sense of connection with him that I had not felt before. We had both experienced similar pain, and it created a bond between us. Over the course of the conference, John and I spent more and more time together. We talked during breaks, ate meals together, and even went for a walk along the beach one evening. We shared stories about our lives, our families, and our hopes for the future. I learned John had gone through a difficult divorce a few years before. He told me his wife had left him for another man. He had been struggling to cope with the pain and loneliness ever since. I felt bad for him. I understood how hard it was to deal with that kind of heartbreak. I started to open up about my own experiences with depression and anxiety. I explained the challenges I faced and the strategies I used to manage my mental health. John listened patiently and offered words of encouragement. I felt a connection with him. I appreciated his support and understanding. I found myself drawn to his vulnerability and his genuine desire to connect. He seemed like a kind, thoughtful person, and I enjoyed spending time with him. I did not realize how much I had needed someone to talk to about my own past trauma. However, as the conference progressed, I started to feel uneasy. I realized that I was developing feelings for John. I knew this was a problem. I am married, and I love my husband. I would never do anything to jeopardize my marriage. I attempted to brush it off and focus on the conference content. I reminded myself that attraction can happen, and it does not have to mean anything. I attended all the sessions and took detailed notes. I made an effort to engage in group discussions. I told myself that these feelings would pass, and the best thing I could do was ignore them. I thought if I just acted normal, the attraction would fade away. I busied myself with work tasks in the evenings. I called my husband each night and told him about the conference events. I focused on how much I missed him and how excited I was to come home. The forced focus did not work as well as I had hoped. I found myself thinking about John even when I was busy. His comments in meetings stood out to me. I noticed his mannerisms and his sense of humor. I started to anticipate seeing him. The more I tried to suppress my feelings, the stronger they seemed to become. I began to worry that other people could see something between us. I felt like I had to be extra careful about my interactions with him. I made sure that my body language was closed off. I avoided direct eye contact when possible. I also avoided being alone with him. I tried to distance myself from John, but it was difficult. We were in the same small group, and we kept running into each other throughout the conference. I felt guilty about my feelings, and I did not want to lead him on. On the final day of the conference, John approached me after our last small group session. He thanked me for being there for him and for listening to him. He said he felt like he had finally started to heal from his past trauma. I told John that I was happy for him and his progress. I genuinely was glad he felt he was moving forward. I meant what I said when I offered support. I did not anticipate anything beyond a platonic friendship. I thought we had that. I was wrong. I should have been more careful. I should have kept a greater distance. Now I felt awkward and unsure how to proceed. This was not a situation I ever wanted to be in. I explained to John that I valued our friendship. I also emphasized my commitment to my marriage. I told him exploring his feelings with me was not an option. I wanted to be clear. I hoped he understood and respected my position. The conversation ended with a strained but polite goodbye. I needed to process what happened. I wanted to talk to my spouse. I did not know how to explain the situation. He then said something that made my heart sink. He said he had developed feelings for me too. He said he knew I was married, but he could not help how he felt. He said he wanted to explore those feelings further. I was stunned. I did not know what to say. I stammered something about being married and loving my husband. I told him I could not reciprocate his feelings. He looked disappointed, but he nodded and said he understood. He said he just wanted to be honest with me. He thanked me again for everything and then walked away. I felt terrible. I had unintentionally reopened old wounds for both of us, and I had created an awkward situation at work. I knew I had to do something to fix it. When I returned home from the conference, I immediately told my husband everything. I explained how I had connected with John and how I had developed feelings for him. I emphasized that I had not acted on those feelings and that I was committed to our marriage. My husband was understandably upset. He was hurt that I had developed feelings for someone else, even if I had not acted on them. He was also concerned about the situation at work. We talked for hours. I apologized profusely for my actions. I assured him that I loved him and that I would do whatever it took to repair our relationship. After a long and difficult conversation, my husband forgave me. He said he understood that I had been vulnerable and that I had made a mistake. He said he trusted me and that he believed in our love. However, he also said that I needed to address the situation with John at work. He said it was important to set clear boundaries and to avoid any further misunderstandings. The following Monday, I went to work with a knot in my stomach. I knew I had to talk to John, but I was dreading it. I did not want to hurt his feelings, but I also needed to protect my marriage. I found John in the break room, making coffee. I took a deep breath and approached him. I started by apologizing for any mixed signals I might have sent. I reiterated that I was married and that I loved my husband. I said I valued our friendship, but I could not pursue a romantic relationship with him. John listened quietly. When I finished, he nodded and said he understood. He said he appreciated my honesty. He said he was still processing his feelings, but he respected my decision. We agreed to keep our interactions professional at work. We would collaborate on projects when necessary, but we would avoid personal conversations. We would be friendly, but we would maintain a distance. To my relief, John stuck to the agreement. We were both a little awkward around each other for a while, but eventually, things returned to normal. We were able to work together without any further issues. In the end, the conference was a learning experience for me. I learned that vulnerability can be a powerful tool for building connections, but it can also be dangerous if not managed carefully. I learned the importance of setting clear boundaries and of protecting my marriage. I also learned that it is possible to heal old wounds, even in unexpected places. John and I were both able to process our past traumas and move forward in a positive way. We became better coworkers and better people as a result of our shared experience. While I initially regretted my actions, I now see the situation as a valuable lesson. I am grateful for the opportunity to have grown and learned from my mistakes. I am also grateful for my husband's forgiveness and support. Looking back, I realized that I had been carrying around a lot of unresolved emotions from my parents' divorce. Talking about it with John helped me to process those emotions and to move on. It was not easy, but it was necessary. I also learned that it is okay to ask for help when you are struggling. I had been trying to handle everything on my own, but I realized that I needed support from my husband, my friends, and even my coworkers. Since the conference, I have made a conscious effort to be more open and honest with the people in my life. I have also made a point of setting clear boundaries and of prioritizing my marriage. The experience with John was a wake-up call for me. It reminded me of what is truly important in life: my husband, my family, and my own well-being. I am committed to nurturing those relationships and to living a more authentic life. I still feel a pang of guilt when I think about the situation with John, but I know that I did the right thing. I protected my marriage, and I helped him to heal. We both learned valuable lessons, and we both moved forward in a positive way. So, while I initially messed up by thinking a work conference would be a safe space, I ultimately turned the situation into a positive one. I healed old wounds, strengthened my marriage, and learned valuable lessons about vulnerability, boundaries, and communication. It was not easy, but it was worth it.